Yesterday, after we made ourselves the video talking about JT Miller and the update that Miller's agent gave on Donnie and Dolly, we had ourselves a few interviews done with Jim Rutherford, Vancouver Canucks' current president of hockey operations. He had himself the presser that he did to the media, and then he also went on to Sportsnet 650 to talk about the direction of the club. And dude, I'm telling you right here, Jim Rutherford is absolutely relentless, and I love the fact that he is so. It was such a crazy shift in tone and words that we're used to as Vancouver Canucks fans looking at the guy up top and seeing him talk about the direction of the team. And the reason I say it like that is because if you go over to the past season-ending press conferences we've had and radio interviews we've had, etc., Jim Benning, right? We know what Jim Benning would usually say when he would come over onto the podium and talk about the team. Oh, the year didn't go the way we expected. We want to be better next year. We think we can be better next year. Our plan is to get better next year. We want to be good. We want to be good. We want to be good. We want to make a team that is competitive, and we like the roster that we have. It's always been complacency for Jim Benning, and it was always adding extra guys that weren't really all too good anyway to the team. And so that's what we got used to for 7 years, was it not? 7 years of the team saying they wanted to be good, 7 years of the team saying that they have all the necessary pieces to be good soon, and then towards the end it was, oh, we live day by day, we ran out of time to re-sign Tyler Toffoli, we lost Tanev and Markstrom and Stetcher all in the same offseason, stuff like that, right? And so, we kind of got used to that language. Which, looking back, I mean, that's a really unfortunate type of discourse to be used to from the guy that's supposed to be in charge of a hockey team. But Jim Rutherford in yesterday's postseason presser, as well as on Sportsnet 650, had some bombs that he dropped on the Vancouver Canucks fanbase that stray away from the familiarity and the complacency that we would see with Jim Benning and the way the roster was assembled. Let's go over onto Jason Bruff's Twitter account because he tweeted some of the quotes that Rutherford said to Richo and Shaw on Reach Deep, I believe the show is. Take a look at what he said yesterday. We should not make decisions just to help us in the short term. We have a really good core of young players. It's our job to add to that and make us better for the long run. Now, firstly, I like what he said at the beginning there. Hey, we shouldn't make decisions just to help us out in the short term. Because of this, I'd like to think that if it was Alvin and Rutherford at the helm at the beginning of the season, or last year, I guess you could say, we would not have seen the OEL Garland trade for JB, Louis Eriksson, Antoine Roussel in the first-round pick. Because that was a pure short-term move. I know Garland has potential, he's young, he's skilled, but that was a sacrificial move, taking away the draft picks of the future and the cap space of the future, too. In order to say, okay, screw it, one more last chance shot at making the playoffs, it's a Benning signature right there. Rutherford also talked about Bruce Boudreau, and he said specifically that he's not going to go out there and renew the guy to a contract extension. Here's the quote from Quadrelli. Rutherford says the Canucks are not willing to bring back Bruce Boudreau for longer than next season at this time. He also said he doesn't want to view Boudreau as a lame duck coach, and that's certainly not to say we wouldn't want to have him back beyond next year. If he continues to do a good job, we would love to have him back. And you know, the first tweet in this part, we're not going to go out there and just give him the contract extension full-time, long-term, because he had a good 50-something game sample. He's making it very clear that he wants to see a full season's worth of success from Boudreau, and there were some very specific parts of the team and its organizational structure that he highlighted actually kind of sucked under Boudreau too. We depend on our goalie a lot, Rutherford said. We're very fortunate to have a terrific goaltender. All good teams need a goalie like Demko to win a cup, but at the same time, we've got some work to do. We'd like to stick with our same plan, Rutherford said on if the team's success from when Boudreau was hired changed his vision on the club, which it's apparent that it hasn't. Our exits from our own zone are not good. Probably one of the worst in the league, Rutherford said. Here's an analysis done on that specific quote. Rutherford notes that the zone exits in particular troubled him in terms of his team's play. The club barely even tried to exit with control under Boudreau, preferring to play punt and hunt. Intriguing commentary on the club's structure. And so this is kind of why they're not super willing to bring Boudreau back right away. Don Taylor had this to say on Twitter, cash aside, if you're Boudreau, would you want to return to coach the Canucks after what Rutherford and Alvin had to say? They clearly aren't impressed. questioning the team structure, zone exits, and dependency on the goaltender. Big thanks for injecting wins and energy into a stale franchise. Rutherford also said that he spoke to Bruce about these issues as well, and Bruce, even though he had all this stuff on his plate, was very willing to say to the media himself that he would like to return to Vancouver, and he knows that Rutherford and Alvin are interested in bringing him back. Although, of course, the contract he has is only going on for next season. There is no guaranteed extension here in the slightest. But I do like that Jim Rutherford is not looking at the sample that Boudreau had and saying, okay, that's a 110-point pace team or whatever. Let's get Boudreau back on here and sign him long-term because 50 games of a sample is good enough for me. I really like that he's being cautious about it. And he even said Bruce was the perfect guy for ownership to bring in during the season. But sometimes a team needs a different kind of coach for different reasons. And so this is kind of why I say there's a little bit of a difference here between Rutherford and Benning. If Benning was at the helm here and he was the guy in charge and he was like, wow, look at that, 50 games, 100-something point pace, Bruce Boudreau came out here and did amazing work for the Canucks. Let's sign him to a long-term deal because what we saw was good enough, man. No. Rutherford is saying it's not enough. In fact, he's still critiquing what we have been seeing, even though he did play at a 100, the Canucks did play at a 100-something point pace under Boudreau the entire time he was here. I really do admire that he's still saying, no, our breakouts still suck. Like, we still rely too much on the goaltender. There are still so many parts of this team structurally that need improvement, and you can't say that he's wrong. He can't say that he's wrong. Demko got hurt because he was playing so much. He got injured a month before the season ended, but he still played through it because he was like, yeah, no, we needed to win all these games because we needed to make the playoffs. And the Canucks themselves probably looked at it and said, okay, would you rather have a Demko playing at 75% or a Yaroslav Halak? Because Halak was just so bad this season. He was so inconsistent that you could not rely on the guy. Demko had some very good games, and the Canucks had to rely on him a lot. So Rutherford going out there and calling that out of Boudreau's style, saying, yeah, no, we need to make sure that this team doesn't make Demko do X% of the work like he had been doing the previous few years. I really do admire that out of the president of hockey ops. We then had ourselves an even better quote from Rutherford talking about JT Miller and what the plan is for this guy. We're going to negotiate with Miller, but if the numbers get out of whack, we will have to make a non-emotional decision and try to get assets that are going to help the Canucks long term. Rutherford pretty much went out there and said, hey, if he's going to be asking for a lot of money, we're going to have no choice but to trade you, bud. Get a lot of assets and help this team out long term. Because Miller is a player that we discussed it yesterday. He's a good player, but like, is he really a $9 million caliber player in 2026, 2027, 2028? Who really knows where JT Miller is going to be by the time that year rolls around, and his contract is still going to be in the $8.59 million AAV range because that's the amount that he has been speculated to be maybe going on the market for. And so Rutherford's saying that straight up, we will have to make a non-emotional decision. I love that. Holy. It's not just the same, we're going to try to get an extension. We really want to keep him, this and that, because we've been hearing things like that in the past. We've gotten disappointed after hearing things like that in the past. We lost Tanev and Markstrom and Toffoli and Stetcher and all these other guys because we heard things like that in the past. And now Rutherford is like, yeah, no, we're going to do it. Like, we're going to try to converse and get a contract done. But if it's not going to happen, we're going to have to make a non-emotional decision to get assets back. Oh, man, that's a cold quote. And for anybody that's going to be worried about, this is kind of like reducing Miller's value in the market, right? Because now that other teams know that the Canucks are willing to shop him, they're going to have some more bargaining power, right? And I know there's a perspective that does say that that is the case, but at the same time, Miller is playing, let's say, like an $8-9 million player right now because he just scored 100 points. I know I said yesterday that I'd rather have a lot of the other 100-point scorers than JT Miller, but still, if you can get 99 points in a season, you're probably worth a lot of money. The question is whether or not he's worth that long term. And the fact that you have a 99-point player making $5.25 million a season for one more year, that's going to get assets regardless as to whether or not the team that the player is coming from wants to keep the guy or not. So personally, I'm not really worried about Miller and his value on the market declining. I do love the idea that Rutherford just introduced the trade conversation right there on the radio. Yeah, no, we're going to have to make a non-emotional decision if we can't agree on a contract. Oh, man, so cold. I love it. Let me know in the comments all your thoughts about Rutherford and the comments that he made, talking about the team structure, Bruce Boudreau, Thatcher Demko, JT Miller, and all this stuff. I hope you enjoyed this British Trolls 99, and bye.